English textbook of the great Karnataka Textbook Society, Bangalore. Lead speaker Dr. Ravinarayan Chaprakodi, who has made a remarkable curriculum design and contribution in teaching and learning English. Without further delay, let us welcome with a big round of applause both the guests and the chair.
Thank you so much, madam, for introducing me to the audience. I hope I'm audible. Thank you, first of all, for the kind invitation. I must thank the organizers, especially Dr. Padma madam, for inviting me to Yashwant Mahavidyalaya, Nanded, and for asking me to deliver this lead talk. This is my first visit, and I have sweet memories to carry with me back to my place, that is Regional Institute of English, South India, Bangalore. It's basically a teacher training institute. We train teachers from 4 states. So any training session will have teachers from 4 different states in South India. So it's a multilingual kind of group, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Yes, multilingual classrooms, and I think this is a shift to inclusive pedagogy. All right, so I have no choice. I'm obliged to make a presentation, but you have a choice. You can either listen or doze off, because we all had heavy lunch. Okay, and thank you, Rohan sir, for chairing my session. Alright, so let's begin with a few statements. I would like you to please talk to each other, maybe in pairs for about 5 minutes. Look at each of these statements and discuss with your partners whether you agree or disagree with these statements. Yeah, so 5 minutes, look at each of the statements, have some discussion, maybe in small groups or in pairs. Yeah, I'll have to zoom. Okay, how do I zoom, sir? No, this is PPT. I can read it out for you. First one is, the goal of English language teaching is to produce native-like English speakers. The goal of English language teaching is to produce native-like English speakers. Agree, disagree, talk to each other. All right, next. The goal of English language teaching is to develop multi-competence, multi-literacies. Third one is, the best way to learn and teach English is through English and English alone. The best way to learn and teach English is through English alone. And code switching and translation are not generally accepted as legitimate classroom strategies. Yes, no, all right, you can say no, I have no opinion also. I'm neutral. English medium classroom should adopt English only approach for teaching and learning content subjects such as computer science or electronics, social studies, economics. So English medium classroom should adopt English only approach for teaching and learning other subjects. Students using other languages in English medium school should pay a small penalty. Yes, no, all right, neutral. Assessment practices such as question paper should be only in English. And the last statement is, bilingual and multilingual students outperform monolinguals in tasks which require high levels of cognitive ability. Yeah, quick discussion. Just talk to each other, share your opinions. What do you think about these statements? And then after 5 minutes, you'll have to just share your agreement or disagreement. Yeah? So 5 minutes. Yeah. Hey, there is pin drop silence. I'm surprised. Madam, you can sit with somebody. Yeah, sit with someone. Yeah. Just some pair work, group discussion. Otherwise, I know what's going to happen after this lunch. Yeah. Talk to each other, please. Yes. Sir, would you like to join somebody? Yeah?
If somebody is here, I will have 2 opinions.
Yeah. Yes, sir, can join, please. Yes. Yeah, yes. You can speak louder. Yes. Yeah, discuss. Okay, so we'll take it up one by one. So yes, what do you think about the first statement? Anybody? Yes, please. Yeah, maybe with some reasons why. Okay. Yeah. Anyone? You can start. Yes, please.
Basically, because English is, when we speak, is for communication. The basic purpose is communication and not to create native like speakers.
Okay. All right. Good. Anyone else? How many of you agree with this? Agree. Oh, very good. 5, 6. Okay, so the goal of English language teaching is to produce British-like speakers, right? Yeah, they should speak in British American English. Agree. Oh, in the statement. With this statement, how many of you agree with this statement? No, there is at least one. Yeah, one. We should respect her opinion. Yes. Tell us why.
English language has international level, and wherever we are going, we need English language for communication, for official use. So, like I am fumbling talking to you, so it shouldn't be happen.
Okay.
We should talk in English like native.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Second one. The goal of English language teaching is to develop multi-competence, multi-literacies. Literacies in different languages, or ability to read and write in different languages, not just in English. Agree, disagree? Agree. How many of you agree? How many of you disagree? Disagree? No, good, very good. All right, next. The best way to learn and teach English is through English and English alone. Agree? Disagree. All right. Code switching and translation are not generally accepted as legitimate classroom practices. Generally, they are not accepted as legitimate classroom practices. Agree? Yeah? All right. Those teachers who code switch, who use their mother tongue, who follow translation method, many a time they feel guilty. Right? Okay. So agree? They are not legitimate classroom practices? Agree or disagree? Agree. All right. English medium classroom should adopt English only approach for studying other subjects. Agree or disagree? Disagree. All right. Students using other languages in English medium school should pay small penalty. Yes, anybody who says yes, they should pay small penalty. You agree? Yes, sir. Tell us, why do you agree with this? Yes.
Because we are opting as English medium schools, means the writing of answers, language should be, or communication should be in English only.
Mm-hmm.
And then how we should tackle them and how we should make habit to go into the flow only.
Mm-hmm.
So the only that human tendency is like that I should not be a penalized one, I should not be paid to penalty.
Mm-hmm. So they should use only English, both inside and outside the classroom, in the playground.
At the premises.
At the premises.
Same practices since last couple of months.
Okay, all right. Yes. Assessment practices should be only in English. Question papers, written test, oral test. Yeah, only in English. Agree?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Bilingual, multilingual students outperform monolingual students in higher level tasks. Bilingual, multilingual students do better than monolinguals. Yes or no? Yes. All right. So basically, I mean, the objective of my presentation is to clarify some of these concepts. I think you have a very good clarity, so I don't need to make any presentation. Looks like you, yeah, that's right. Except for, I mean, a few statements. Good. Yeah. Next is, this is what I actually read yesterday on Facebook. Can you read, or should I read it out? Yeah. This is a teacher from Kerala posted this. I can actually share the same page, but I didn't want to reveal the name. All right. So She says, as an English medium student in a small town in Kerala, I was good at writing in English but not speaking it because we didn't have to. We didn't have to speak in English, right? Malayalam was good enough for everyday life. My school even imposed a fine of ₹2 if teachers caught us speaking in our mother tongue. So most of us who were smart stopped talking completely. Time passed by. I landed in Chennai for my post-graduation, funnily enough, in communication. All right. Communication, one thing she found hard, right? Difficult, but she had to do this course. Suddenly, English went from being an exam language to an everyday necessity. I knew only Ama in Tamil, but I had to say Ila. I don't know Tamil actually. Ila. I had to say Ila more than I expected. My Malayalam accented Ila was understandable to Tamilians outside college, but my posh women's college had other plans for me. Every time I said coffee, you know how Malayalis say coffee, right? Coffee. Every time I said this, my classmates laughed. Even those who had scored lower than me in the entrance exam laughed. And she continues, democracy, I tell you. I didn't understand what was the big deal in coffee. Such a small word, nice drink. One Tamilian classmate finally explained, it's coffee, not coffee. Alright. Fair enough, their land, their rules. I still love her. But the drama didn't stop there. Whenever I pronounced anything with an O in a word, the girls laughed. I had half the mind to give up and run back home. But I was a superstar in my hometown. No one knew about my plight in Madras. So like before, I stopped talking. Good? Is it good? Stop talking? No coffee, lorry, not even God, I don't know. Yeah. Fast forward to the final year of my communication course. Google was recruiting from our campus, so I applied. During the 4 or 5 rounds of personal interviews, I spoke the way I always had. I needed the job. Luckily, I was one of the only 2 students selected by Google. Later, when I got an opportunity to go abroad, I met many people whose first language was not English. They spoke the way they could. Some even stuck to their own language with confidence. They were proud of their roots and never felt ashamed about their pronunciation in a foreign language. And that's when I realized that I had spent too much time worrying about how I sounded rather than focusing on what mattered. Now, I say coffee however I want and I drink it too. Alright, very interesting. Now you can go back to the statements and again maybe have discussions, debates, but let's not do that. And these are just 2 comments I picked up from her Facebook page. So one person commented like this, so true. To maintain a hallucinated standard, speak English is imposed. But the influence of mother tongue on this language isn't accepted. Intentions are right, but results in hampered communication skills. So if you focus too much on rules, right, students will stop speaking. And the other one, colonial hangover, standard English, Queen's English, British English, right? Yeah. All right, so this is what I picked up from one of the textbooks. Probably this is from Maharashtra, from your state. A textbook prescribed for class 11. And these are the statements of competencies from Yuvak Bharati compulsory English 11th standard textbook. I don't want to read out everything. These are the competencies related to speaking. Use spoken language fluently in day-to-day communication. Speak with acceptable pronunciation. Speak coherently, logically. And this is what we generally have as competencies, learning outcomes, right? And then make oral presentations on a given topic, narrate stories, use formal, informal language, and all that. Recite poems, deliver speeches. So these are speaking related and these are reading related competencies given in the textbook. Adopt different reading strategies, including silent reading, such as skimming, scanning, prediction, inferences, etc. Read aloud and appreciate the rhyme scheme of the poem. Read patiently till the end of the literary piece for better comprehension, and then identify verbosity, ambiguity, inconsistency, and learn about other cultures. The last one is interesting. Learn about other cultures and develop humanistic and liberal mindset. Okay. But the aim of language education, if you look at the aim of language education, this is from CFR. What is CFR? Common European Framework of Reference. Yeah. So Common European Framework of Reference says, 2001 says, the aim of language education is profoundly modified. It is no longer seen as simply to achieve mastery of 1 or 2 or even 3 languages, each taken in isolation, with the ideal native speaker as the ultimate model. That is no longer our model. Instead, the aim is to develop a linguistic repertoire in which all linguistic abilities have a place. Languages are interrelated and interconnected, especially at the level of the individual. Languages and cultures are not kept in separated mental compartments. All knowledge and experience of language contribute to building up communicative competence. Balanced mastery of different languages is not the goal. So balanced mastery of one language and then another language, all right? First language and then second language, then third language. So this kind of approach, that's not the goal, but rather the ability to modulate their usage according to the social and communicative situation. So that is the goal. Barriers between languages can be overcome in communication, and different languages can be used purposefully for conveying messages in the same situation. So this is what is called multilingual approach, translanguaging, plurilingual approach, all right, where speakers can switch over from one language to another, where it becomes a natural process for users of the language to switch from one language to another. Again from CFR again. So the document says we need to build pluricultural repertoire in students especially. What it means is, so these are the descriptors for intercultural competence, or you can also call it pluricultural competence. Pluri means multicultural competence. The need to deal with ambiguity when faced with cultural diversity, adjusting reactions, modifying language, etc. I think all these things you can easily relate. Yesterday, for example, we were in a group. Rohan sir is from Sri Lanka, and we had Kailash sir in our group from Nanded, who speaks Marathi, and one person who can speak both in Marathi and Hindi. I cannot understand Marathi, but I can understand Hindi. So one person would say something in Marathi, the other one would translate it into Hindi, which I would translate to Rohan in English. Listen to that. So my role was that of the mediator, or the mediate between Rohan and the local speakers, Kailash and others, right? Interlocutor. So this is, again, there are many cultural shocks. When I first landed here, there were a few cultural shocks. So we should be able to handle such situations, right? So that is what it's all about, developing multicultural competence. And then, willingness to show sensitivity to differences, and readiness to offer and ask for clarification, anticipating possible risks of misunderstanding, right? And then plurilingual comprehension. So when it comes to reading, it's not just developing reading comprehension in one language, but developing multiliteracy, developing reading comprehension in many different languages. So capacity to use knowledge of and proficiency in one or more languages as leverage for approaching tasks in other languages. I think we will not get into detailed discussion on all this, but these are some of the important concepts associated with plurilingual comprehension. Openness and flexibility to work with different elements from different languages. Exploiting similarities, recognizing false friends. For example, gift in English can mean one thing. The same word gift may have another meaning in another language. Gift in English, we know what it means, but in Spanish, it means poison. So these are called false friends words which look alike but have different meanings in different languages. And then, so exploiting parallel sources, and then, yes. So what it means is, speakers or students can deduce the message of a text by exploiting what they have understood from text on the same theme in different languages. Or maybe they will read something they'll read something in their own language but interpret it in English. Or they'll read something in English and express their opinion in their L1, in their first language, right? It's not audible? Oh, it's okay, all right, yeah, thank you, no problem. Next, so this is what is meant by plurilingual repertoire. They can alternate between languages flexibly to facilitate better communication in a multilingual situation. That is the highest level, C1. C2 level is they can interact in a multilingual context on abstract and specialized topics by alternating flexibly between languages. So it's not talking about one language. All right, ability to translanguage. So so they make use of English, Kannada, and Marathi. For example, I'm just giving an example. What it means to us is that they can make use of English, Kannada, and Marathi during collaborative interaction in order to clarify the nature of a task, the decisions to be taken and the outcomes expected. All right. So, the implication is that it's very important to create a multilingual environment in our schools and colleges. How can we do that? This actually presentation is for 1.5 hours. I'm reducing it to for half an hour now. All right, so I'll have to rush through. So make your teaching culturally relevant. How do we do that? Teachers can use students' own backgrounds and knowledge to build bridges to content understanding. So that's the implication for all of us. We as teachers can use students' own languages to activate their background knowledge. What do they already know about the topics, so that we can bridge the gaps, right? Bring students' cultures into the classroom in a meaningful way. And how do we do it? Expand the content area curriculum to include other cultures. Expand the contents, lessons, poems, so as to include other cultures. And choose culturally relevant texts. I don't know how relevant it is to your context, but in a place like Bangalore, if your child is studying in an engineering college, medical college, all these make a lot of sense. There are children coming from different states. If you don't integrate their cultures into your curriculum, students speaking Kannada will make one group, students from Telugu speaking background, they'll make another group. So whenever there is group discussion, they'll sit according to their state languages. So it is going to affect the classroom scenario, right? So it's very important to be sensitive and bring them all together. And then so you can use culturally relevant texts in the classrooms, have interesting discussions, debates. And then students can write identity texts. Identity text means writing about themselves. So create a bilingual text in English and their home language. So maybe they write about themselves in their language first, and then teacher helps them to write it in a second language, or if they're confident about writing in English, they write about themselves, their cultures, their background, their families, right? They try to establish their own identity. And so it's important to create classroom and school environments that represent, respect, and value all of your students. So that's why I call it inclusive kind of approach. Multilingual approach is inclusive. Setting up your learning environment to include students' home languages side by side with English recognizes the linguistic diversity they bring to school and helps all students become more aware of what languages and scripts coexist with English in their communities. They try to respect each other's languages, cultures. So what parts of my classroom environment could I make multilingual? Oral activities can be multilingual. So will it be possible to use home language signals, transitions, songs, greetings in addition to or instead of English, wherever relevant or necessary? And in writing, for example, where can you bring other languages in their writing, right? Where would it make sense to create multilingual labels or displays? All right. And we can also encourage students to create language portfolios. They are called language portfolios. It's a way for students to record and celebrate their language learning and cultural experiences over time. And the language portfolio includes several different sections and is something that students keep with them as they progress through the grades. Language biography, it's happening in many Western schools. Language biographies, language passports, language dossier. Right. So, and then when you write your curriculum objectives, teaching learning objectives, so you can have learning objectives and language objectives. Generally, we have learning objectives. Students have to learn the content related objectives. They have to learn about these many topics. Along with that, you can have language related objectives. So for each of your learning objectives, you can include language objectives to specify exactly what language your students will need to understand and use. Right? What languages they need to use in the class, when, why should they use other languages, how they can, use all these things. And language objectives can be at different levels, all right? And then, yes, so that is what at the text level, paragraph level, sentence level, word level. If they're not so proficient in English, maybe you can have language objectives at the sentence level, word level sometimes. If they're very proficient, maybe they'll have to write paragraphs in both the languages. Yeah. What's the time? 3:20. I've got another 5-10 minutes. Yeah. All right. And then use English and home language strategically during collaborative work. Right. Yeah. They can discuss, reflect, negotiate content in any language, but discuss in any language, but share it in English, because if English is your target language, right, then they can read, discuss in any language, but express it in English, all right, and then brainstorm in any language, but write in English. So those are our language objectives. And then preview in home language. You can preview the content in home language and then collaborate in any language. Listen in English and discuss in any language. You can have various tasks, activities like this. Research in any language, all right, internet, use any language, any website, but write your paper, write your essay in English. And you can also have multilingual reading groups, reading partners, and multilingual writing partners. So they can jointly construct a piece of writing in English with discussion and negotiation in any language. Read a partner's writing in English and discuss revisions and edits in any language. So we don't have time, otherwise every activity can be discussed at length. How do we do it? For example, read a partner's writing in English, but discuss revisions. Why should they discuss revisions? Why should they edit? We can discuss and work together to translate one another's writing from the home language to English, right? Creative translation exercises. And internet, it has got rich multilingual content. So we can use internet as a multilingual resource. Right. So multilingual research. Conducting multilingual research can mean reading texts in English or the home language, such as books, magazines, newspapers, and online texts. Right. And then listening to text in English. So many things can be done. Okay, so that is and then actually we have. So I can talk with much conviction, with greater confidence, because we have done a project on multilingual approach, multilingual pedagogy. I've been doing it. I've been the lead coordinator of this project for about 2 to 3 years now. We took up this project because we don't have a clear language policy in our state. And language policy, any state for that matter, it is not evolved. For example, as Mallikarjun says in his research paper, language policy is not framed and implemented in a single stroke. It has evolved, language policy of our state, it has evolved during the period, in Karnataka for example, during the period from 1956 to 2020 through the process of conflict, understanding, adjudication and adjustment of roles for various mother tongues. It has a long history. Language policy has a long history of conflict, debates and arguments, ideologies. Even the courts had to intervene at times. So for example, Karnataka government issued an order in 1994 where it made a comprehensive policy relating to language as a subject in the school education and medium of instruction in Karnataka. And the policy said from first to fourth standards, the child's mother tongue will be the medium of instruction. It was very clear. The document says from class 1 to class 4, medium of instruction will be mother tongue. And by mother tongue, what they mean is, it will be one among, either Kannada, or if it is a Tamil speaking population, Tamil can be the medium of instruction. So likewise, Urdu or English if children come from English speaking background, if English is their first language. But from the 8th standard, from 5th standard, the student has to choose second and third languages. From 8th standard, they'll have to study 3 languages. So this was a language policy, and this was challenged in the High Court mainly by the private managements. They went to the court challenging this order, like Kannada should be the medium of instruction. So this was referred to a special bench, full bench of the High Court. High Court wanted some clarity. Is right to choose a medium of instruction a fundamental right of a child? Whether parents and children have the right to choose a medium of instruction. What do you think was the judgment given by the High Court? Who has the right to choose a medium of instruction? What is the judgment of the High Court? Anybody? So what's the answer for these? Do they have a right to choose a medium of instruction? Yes or no? Yes, that's right. So that's what the High Court said. Right to education is a fundamental right. And then right to education includes right to choose a medium of instruction. This is the fundamental right of the parent and the child. So right to freedom of speech and expression also means right to choose a medium of instruction. Right? And then this was challenged by the government of Karnataka. Government of Karnataka approached Supreme Court, and Supreme Court also observed a child or on his behalf his parent or guardian has a right to freedom of choice with regard to the medium of instruction. So now the child or the parent have the right to the medium of instruction. So what has happened is, in 1994, government said mother tongue should be the medium of instruction. But in 2007, till then, English was introduced as a subject from grade 5. But in 2007, they brought it down to grade 1. English was offered as a subject. But interestingly, in 2019, government itself introduced English medium in 1,000 government schools from grade 1, 1,400. 1,000 Kannada medium schools were converted into English medium, 400 Urdu medium schools were converted into English medium because of parental pressure, societal expectations. And And interestingly, in one of the papers, he says, we are going back to colonial period by introducing English medium. This government introducing English medium in government, he says, this is a great setback to the local language, to Kannada, to our culture, right? He said, so the 21st century may go into another kind of self-inflicted linguistic colonization. And you can recall Macaulay's minutes of the meeting. He said, the minute says, we have to educate a people who cannot at present be educated by means of their mother tongue. On March 9, William Bentinck, he also supported, he said, he agreed with Macaulay's minute and said that all the funds henceforth be employed in imparting to the native population knowledge of English literature and science through the medium of English. But again, multilingual approach becomes very important in this context. I don't think we are going back to colonial period. We are supporting what Macaulay said, right? So multilingual approach for me, I'll skip all this because there is no time. And Guy Cook in 2010, he said, it's not visible. So Guy Cook said, 20th century in language teaching was largely a monolingual period in which our learners' prior languages were at best ignored and at worst banished from the language classroom, at least in mainstream ELT discourse. With this, by banishing their mother tongues, what we have lost is, he says, we lost so much of their creativity, identities, and social rights as multilinguals. Not to mention the many hours we spent trying to explain, mime, or elicit the impossible. All right? And then he says, since the turn of the 21st century, we have rejected these practices, monolingual kind of practices, and the concept of translanguaging has emerged as a means to offer both the theoretical justification and the inspiration for how we can do this in our classrooms. Translanguaging also empowers the majority of teachers in the world. This is true, absolutely true. We have experienced, it gives a lot of confidence to teachers, not only students. So teachers, it helps teachers who typically have a good knowledge of their learners' languages, culture and knowledge base. Right? And then, so government introduced English medium. In the first year they said English only approach. In English medium schools, we should follow English only approach. But based on our experiences, and in 2020, all these English medium sections were called bilingual sections, where teachers were encouraged to use the dominant language of the state. Textbooks were bilingual. If you see, this is NCERT maths textbook on the right hand side. The very next year, 2020, government converted English text in English into bilingual textbooks. EVS, environmental science were bilingual, maths textbook was bilingual. Same thing happened in Urdu English medium schools. Urdu textbooks were converted into bilingual textbooks. But then we visited schools and then prepared a report. We said even this bilingual approach is not really helping. So observations from school visits and interactions with stakeholders revealed that many classrooms were inherently multilingual. If teachers are asked to use the dominant state language in the bilingual classroom, then you're excluding a few students, right? So this is insufficient because classrooms are multilingual. And this is what you will see in many classrooms. Students, it's not only Kannada speaking children who sit in your classroom. There are children who speak Tamil in Bangalore. This is very common. You have a whole lot of Tamil migrants and Telugu speaking children are there in the classroom. And these days, migrants from Odisha and other states, right? So it's a real multilingual classroom. If you go to rural parts, you have children who speak Urdu, Kannada, Urdu, and also, see, these are local dialects. There are Tulu speaking children, Kodava, Lambani, tribals speak their own languages, right? So this is what we have found out in our school visits, in our interactions. We submitted a report, and in 2023-24, we trained on a pilot basis. We have trained some 270 teachers on multilingual approach. Same English medium government schools changed into bilingual. Now we are trying multilingual approach in these schools. We have prepared a handbook, and it seems to be helping a lot, both teachers and students. So these are certain principles we followed while preparing multilingual handbook. Why should we use other languages? To make children feel comfortable and developing confidence as an inclusive kind of approach and all that. And multilingual strategies. It's not just the teacher using other languages. So there is a lot of scope for children to use their languages for peer tutoring, all right, for peer support, and then translanguaging, creative translation. So we discussed all these different strategies. And so if you ask them to write in their own language, they'll write so much. This is a summary of a lesson from English textbook actually. Tharu's reward. Students don't know who is Tharu and all that, but they'll read, understand everything, all right. So teacher will follow multilingual approach. So if you ask them to write a summary in English, how much do you think they'll write? Just 1 or 2 sentences, or 2-3 sentences, maybe at the most half. Ask them to write in their own language. They write so much, 1 full page. And if you ask them to present a summary orally, they do it very well. So it's not comprehension that is the question. The question, language is acting as a barrier. Language, just because they cannot summarize it in English, we are denying them lots of opportunities. They are denied from classroom participation. Right, so L1 competency, we have to use their L1 competency to develop L2 competency. So I think, that's all. I think I'll stop here. So yes, so going back to Macaulay. So now you will look at this minutes, and in a multilingual context, it doesn't make much sense. So I think this is a decentering kind of approach. We are not following the centrist kind of approach, not borrowing ideas from the West, but trying to develop our own approaches, our own methodologies by creating multilingual materials multilingual classroom practices. So this is called decentering approach. Decentering approach. There is a book written by Dr. Amol Padwad and Richard Smith on decentering approach. I think we are moving towards that kind of approach. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
The only question is then,